Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Mind School podcast, and Happy New Year's for those of you who are in the business world, or maybe not, maybe in the financial world. Happy quarter one or New Year's. I wanted to record a little bit of an episode because this time of year is such a good time of year to be reflecting on the goals that you set out at the beginning of the year and really coming back to, am I aligned? Am I on track? Have I completely fucking forgotten what even I was doing on January 1st? And such a nice time to reflect on, am I moving in the right direction? Or is it time to even realign my goals? Is it time to reconsider my goals, to get into alignment, to do a bit of a reset? And I was having this conversation with my mastermind students from the Mind School where I said to them this week, Happy New Year's! And there were a few blank faces, but it's such a fun time, especially if you're in business or you want to have a business or you're an aspiring coach. It's also really important to start to identify in this way. This is a business. We are going into Q1 of your business. So to start to do the work for planning, for strategizing, and for making sure that everything you're doing in your business, your life, your habits, and all of those things that you're doing on a day-to-day basis are actually moving you in the direction of your goals. So if you've listened to this podcast for a long time, you know that I love New Year's. I also love this time of year. It's halfway through the year and we get to reflect. And it is so important that we reflect for lots of different reasons. Sometimes, especially if you're a high performer, which a lot of people here might be that are listening will probably identify with this, you might be someone who sets goals and you achieve them, but then you're already on to the next thing by the time that you've achieved that goal. So you rob yourself of the opportunity to look back and go, whoa, I've actually achieved so much. Look how far I've come. Or you might be in the habit of, I achieved the goal and then I want more, so it's never enough and I'm never satisfied. And what it does is it allows us to really sit in gratitude, to notice how far we have come, to build our confidence, to build our trust in ourselves, because we can look backwards first, collect lots of evidence that we are moving in the right direction and that we can trust ourselves. And that, like I said, builds our confidence. So it's really important that we reflect, especially if you're a high achiever, for those reasons I've just mentioned. But it's also really important that we reflect on our goals and where we're heading, because sometimes I think it's really important that we actually go, do these even still align? Am I actually still wanting this? And doing that check-in, because if you're always evolving and your circumstances are changing and you're growing and you're learning new things about yourself and you're integrating new lessons and maybe you're having a few different identity shifts or changes in your world, it's important to realign and go, do those goals even matter anymore? Did I have my ladder against the right wall? And this can be something or a trap that I see a lot of people fall into, where we set a goal for ourselves and it might be a past version of ourselves set the goal. So a past version of me said that I was going to XYZ. And then we become a prisoner to the promises of our past. And that's where I see people that are afraid to start again because they're like, well, I don't want to start again. I said I was going to do this. Or they start to flog a dead horse because they're so intent on following through with their goals that they're doing it for the wrong reasons and it doesn't even feel good anymore. And it's like I said, you become a prisoner to your past self. And if you're not consistently checking in with, does this goal align with my values? Does this goal align with who I am now? Does this actually take me closer to where I want to go? Then you might fall into that category of somebody who really finds it hard to be fluid and to make changes because you are so hell-bent on sticking something out, even if it's actually not helpful anymore. So there's a few, like I said, so many great reasons to reflect this time of year and to really think back on, okay, where was I January 1st? Am I tracking? And where am I going? Where am I finishing off this year? And this is something that I've been doing all week. I'm actually in Bali at the moment. And for anyone who's following along on YouTube, because that's an intention of mine, I shared at the start of this year and I shared recently in the podcast, it's a massive goal of mine to grow this thing. It's a massive goal of mine to up-level the production. And right now I'm in a podcast studio. I'm in Bali. I'm reassessing my goals. I've been spending a lot of time by the pool reestablishing where am I aligned? What do I really want? Considering the changes that I've made in the last 6 months and new things that I've learnt. Can I be fluid with some of those goals? Do some of those goals from January 1st need to change? Am I on track with what I set out to do? And do the reflection from there. And that, when we do this well, and I'm going to share on this podcast how to do this, there is also in the show notes for those of you that want to do this at home and do this in your journaling, I'm adding in the show notes a process that I go through and one of my hacks, which I'll be sharing at the end of this episode, which always keeps me on track. All of this is going to be on the show notes, so you can get a downloadable and use this hack. It works for me every fucking time. That's all going to be in the show notes. But I also want to walk you through how I stay intentional and how I make sure that I'm making decisions in my day-to-day life that always reflect my aligned goals. Once you start doing this, what it's going to do for you is make sure that you're not doing the fluffy work. It's going to keep you accountable to where you're getting lost in shiny object syndrome. It's going to give you a North Star. It's going to give you a compass to align all your decisions and your tasks and your non-negotiables for the rest of this year. So what I want you to ask yourself as we go into the new year, which is Q1, meaning the next quarter, the first quarter of this financial year, or the last 6 months of 2024, which is so wild, I want you to ask yourself, what are the goals? What are my goals right now? And being the financial year, being Q1, maybe you do want to start to look at what are my financial goals, especially if, which a lot of people who are listening may fall into this category, you have a business, you want to have a business, or you just want to get more on top of your finances. If you can, I would love for you to get really clear and really specific about what actually are my financial goals. And one of them could be financial. It could be health. What are my health goals? And how you come up with the different buckets or the different categories, or how I come up with the different buckets and categories whenever I'm goal setting and reflecting, is I start with my values all the time. I always start with what are the most important things in my life? What are the things that give my life meaning? And from there, I have a few little intentions and goals within those categories. The first thing that I do is start with values. And for me, how this as an example plays out is I have a goal always that's under my health goals, because health is one of my top values. The other top value of mine is business growth. And under that, I have specific goals. Family and relationships is extremely important to me. And so I have essentially intentions around those things. And I make sure that they become something that I am always reflecting on. Am I living in integrity with not only those values, but the goals within those values? So start there. What are the most important things in your life? What are the things that give your life meaning? And then under each category, do you have an intention? Do you have a goal? Now, when you set a goal, it is really important that you have specificity. And so when I say specificity, it's making sure that you're not writing down goals that are really vague. Like, for Q1, I'm going to get more clients. Or in Q1, I'm going to make more money. And what this does when it's really vague is that it gives us nothing to actually have as a target or a KPI to know if it's working. And if you think energetically, it's almost like you're saying to the universe, I want more money. And the universe, if you can imagine a relationship with the universe, and the universe is like this person that's listening and is wanting to give you things and is conspiring with you. And by the way, that's a belief system that I choose. Do I have like unequivocal evidence that there's this all-knowing, all-loving omnipresence of this energy, this God that is trying to conspire with me? I don't have evidence of that, but I choose to believe that, because your beliefs create your reality. And the more I believe that, the more I see evidence of that. And this has been so true in my life because I believe that the universe is working and conspiring with me. I see so much evidence of that when I start to take aligned action. Things happen that I could never, ever have predicted that make me think, wow, somebody here has my back. And so that's a side tangent. But if you think about the fact that when you put out a vague goal, and you have the belief that there is a universe or an energy or a presence that is working with you, what are they thinking when you go, I want more money? Okay, here's $5. I buried it in the sand. You got to find $5. You said you wanted more money. So here's the $5. I want more clients. Okay, here's one more client. So be specific, and that's something that then you can measure. And so as an example, when I came to Bali, I was like, I'm setting the intention to take up running again. And I just want to always, my baseline is always, I should be able to run 5Ks without training, without even thinking about it. I want my fitness to always be at a level where 5Ks is no problem. And that's generally where I sit. But I said to my husband before we came here, I'm going to really intentionally practice my running and my cardio fitness while I'm here. So every day I've been trying to run just a little bit longer, and in 5-minute increments I increase. And the goal for me is that I want to run 10Ks by the end of this year. So I have a metric that I can actually track and measure to see if I am moving in the right direction. If you have a goal financially and it's like, I want more clients, that is too vague, and it's not telling the universe or giving you practical KPIs to be able to move towards. So be really specific and start to write down within your values buckets what actually are those measurable specific goals. Now, once you've done this and you've started to realign with where you're going and doing this bit of a reset for the rest of the year, and I also want to just share here, please don't, if you are doing a reflection first, if you've done a reflection and you're like, oh my God, I completely forgot about those goals, I haven't taken action, please be really kind to yourself and take a dose of responsibility and know that there are still 6 months. There is still half a year where you can completely change things around. I again, with beliefs, I always believe you're one decision away from changing your life. So if you want to sit down after this with the resource that I've got in the show notes for you and really make the decision that you're going to realign, reset, let's not be disheartened if you look back and go, oops, fuck, I forgot what I even said Jan 1st. So you've done the reflection, you've created your buckets, your values buckets, you've got some specific goals in mind for the rest of your year or for your Q1. The other thing that I would say with those, especially with things like money or like for me, a 10K run, sometimes it's not always enough just to put a goal with a rudimentary number there. If you're not motivated by the number itself, you are more likely to follow through with your goals, with your Q1 goals, if you put a meaning to the goal and you attach an emotion. This is NLP 101. This is coaching 101. You have to get emotional about your goals. You have to understand the emotional why. And so for me, as an example, I do set money goals, but when I just write a money goal on the page, it honestly doesn't do much for me because I'm so motivated by feelings, and everybody actually is. Whereas, and some people are actually intrinsically motivated by money. It'll be one of their top 5 values. It could be finances and financial abundance could be somebody's top value. So to write down a money goal would be inherently motivating. For me, not so much. And knowing this about myself means when I go to write a money goal, because this falls under my growth, my business growth values. I value business growth. I value expanding myself, getting the most out of myself. And within that, money is a metric for how I can measure if I am growing my impact, if I am growing all of these other great things that really mean something to me. And so under the category of business growth, I always have a financial goal, but when I just write that as it is, it actually doesn't feel very motivating until I assign that money meaning. And so what that looks like is, okay, once you hit this money goal, what are you going to do with it? How are you going to use that? How are you going to invest and spend and circulate that money in a way that further adds value to your life, in a way that further enables you to be more expressed, more free, more excited? What are you going to do with that money? For me personally, I noticed, and this is just another little hack for anyone that's like me, when I write money goals, I generally don't feel too much other than it's a metric of how much I've grown and how much impact I've given to the world. And I get really fucking excited when I start writing all the ways I can do things with my family and how I can give back. And, I've got these visions and dreams of like taking my whole family. This probably sounds like hell to most people, and I'm very aware of this. I want to take my whole family on a bike packing adventure through Europe, doing the same track that my husband and I did. because it was just so insane, and my family actually all love riding. So I really want to take them on an all expenses paid, bougie as, and obviously when I say bougie, I mean it's camping and it's cycling. So bougie with a really fucked up butt, like bougie with a side of blisters and mozzies and really bad quad DOMs and really tired but bougie cycling trip across Europe. And that gets me excited. I get excited about things like getting a sauna in my home and an ice bath and creating this like almost health retreat in our backyard. And that gets me excited because again, it actually aligns with my values, with what's important to me and what gives me meaning. So again, giving back to my family, giving back to my friends, health, and assigning those money goals to other values actually intrinsically motivates me more. So that's the other thing we can do this time of year. Attach meaning to the goals that you have set for yourself, especially within the context or frame of what is important to you and what gives your life meaning, and how can you assign those things to align with your values even more. So that's the other hack. Now, how do I, because I've done this reflection very recently, I knew New Year's was coming up, so I did my own sort of reflection practice, which is again in the document and resource that I'm giving to you so that you can do this by yourself at home. How I know whether I'm on track or not on track is that I go back to everything I wrote down on Jan 1st, but also I have got a metric that I have to look at every single day, and this is one of the hacks. On New Year's, when I write my goals, my values, the things that I'm intending to move towards, I have like an energy, I have an intention. One of my words as an example for this year was wholesome, and I have done an incredible job of having really wholesome experiences. My life has felt so wholesome this year, and I'm really proud of myself for following through on that. Another thing, like a word that has really given this year focus and direction this year, was structure and routine. So in my business, I wanted more structures, and I'm very, very proud of myself and my team for how we are going about this. We have written SOPs for everything. Everything inside the business now has documentation, step-by-steps, how-tos. We're really tidying up systems, procedures, and all of those things. But how I've managed to stay so on track, like I said, I stare at these words and these reminders every single day. Now, how I do this, and the extra thing I want to add to you, and again, I've given you a resource in the download section or the show notes so that you can download your own. I always, at the start of the year, make a wallpaper, which is on my laptop, and my laptop has images, words, phrases, and intentions that remind me of where I am intending to go. And so my laptop, every single time I look at it, every time, and that's multiple times a day. And if you've listened to this podcast before, you know repetition is the mother of subconscious programming. You know repetition is how we rewire our subconscious. Repetition is how we learn. Repetition is how we stay on track. Repetition is so important. But I repeatedly see reminders, phrases, and images that remind me of where I'm going. So when I open my laptop several times a day, I see structure and routine. I see images of somebody in the gym. I see a pregnant belly, because that's another thing that I am intending towards. I see images, phrases, words that just remind me all the time simply by looking at my wallpaper. And that keeps me so accountable. And yes, there are days where I'm like, ooh, I didn't hit my protein target today. And I'll be logging on and waiting for it to load, and it will be like, hit protein target every day, because that was one of my health goals. I started this year wanting to really focus on my health. I got myself a PT. I've been working on my form. I've been working on my cardio, and I've got these things on my wallpaper to keep me accountable. So that's one of the ways that I stay really, really on track. And I urge you to do it this Q1, this New Year's. Do that. Make a wallpaper after you've done your reflection, after you've done your values realignment, after you've written down your measurable goals. Make this a wallpaper. And like I said, I've got a template that I use on Canva. I change it every so often too, just to keep because the other thing about this, again, another hack, when it becomes so routine that we no longer pay attention to it, it kind of disappears into, I see this all the time, I'm no longer even paying attention. That's where it can be important to change the wallpaper every quarter, change the wallpaper every 6 months, but keep the same goals, words, and vibe, but change it so that your mind is still seeing it and paying attention to it. So I've got a template that I use in Canva, and I'm going to be changing mine up again this Q1. Same goals, same intentions, just a few different images and a few tweaks, and that will be my new wallpaper. So I have given you a copy that you can use. It's in the download section. So if you want to create your own wallpaper, absolute game changer, keeps me so accountable, keeps me so on track. And what this again is just so good for is when you know where your goals are, when you know where you are heading, you no longer fall for every shiny object, every other thing that could distract you. You put your blinkers on and you know how to align all your actions and all your decisions. Something that I often get asked, either through clients or even just having conversations with friends, is, well, how do I know if this is the right decision? Or how do I know what I should be doing? What tasks should I be doing? What is the needle moving tasks? And if you can get into the habit, if you can just, again, maybe this is the main takeaway from this whole episode. If you can get into the habit of asking yourself with every decision, with every habit, with every action, asking yourself, does this take me closer to who I'm becoming and what I want out of life? Yes or no? That is how you make choices. That is how you align yourself. So ask the question consistently, does this take me closer to my goals? Does this make me more of the person I want to become? Or does this take me away? You're going to become closer and closer to your goals. You're going to bridge the gap. You're no longer going to have shiny object syndrome. You're not going to get easily distracted. You'll be in your own lane, doing your own thing and moving closer towards your goals. So I really hope this helps you. Happy bloody New Year's. It is July officially. We're halfway through the year. You get to decide how you're going to end 2024. You're only ever one decision away from completely changing the trajectory of your life. And honestly, if you don't have a goal, you don't know where you're heading. So do this. Like I said, if you want to go through this whole process that I go through, including making your own wallpaper, and if you want the template and everything, I've made a resource for you. It's in the show notes. Let me know how you're going with your Q1 New Year's planning. Tag me in this episode if it was helpful to you. I would love to hear from you, and I will be back next week. Thank you.